The horn was heavier than it looked. Jon Snow turned it over in his hands, the black curve of it drinking in the light as if it were thirsty. It was cracked along one side, a long pale seam where the surface had split and flaked. Old, he thought. Older than Castle Black, older than the wall. Old in the way the weirwoods were old. I was wondering where that had crawled off to, Sam said behind him, breathless from the climb. You found it. Jon glanced over his shoulder. Samwell Tarly stood in the doorway of the Lord Commander Solar, cheeks flushed from the stairs, one gloved hand braced on the frame. The wind from the courtyard below came knifing up the Tower of Command, rattling the shutters, carrying the distant clang of steel from the practice yard and the murmur of voices from the hall. Winter smell was in it, dry and metallic. You brought this back from the Fist, didn't you? Jon asked. Sam swallowed. Aye. It was in that bundle with the dragonglass. We thought it might be something. I told you about it. You said to leave it in the stores until we knew more. I remember, Jon said. At the time there had been too much else to think on. Dead brothers rising with blue eyes, burned hands, Craster's Keep and the bitter flight south. A horn had seemed small beside all that. Why didn't you tell me it looked like this? Sam shrugged miserably. It was dirty then, caked with ice and mud. I only saw a horn, dusty, cracked. I thought it might not be anything at all. He shuffled forward, peering down at it. I still don't know if it's anything. Jon brushed his thumb along the crack. The horn's surface was smooth as glass where it wasn't broken, cold even through the glove. In the hair-thin gaps of the fracture, something pale shimmered like frost trapped under glass. Something, he murmured. Everyone thought Mance had the Horn of Winter. He remembered the Wildling King's smirk as he had boasted of waking giants from the earth and bringing down the wall, remembered the worthless bit of horn Melisandre had cast into the fire. If that wasn't it, Sam shifted his weight from foot to foot. Old Nan told stories about the Horn of Joramun at Winterfell, didn't she? The horn that would wake the sleepers in the earth and bring down the wall. But that could be any horn in any story. Every place has its tales. This might just be. The horn shuddered in Jon's hands. It was not a sound, not exactly. A pressure, instead, like the deep boom of distant thunder, felt more in the bones than heard with the ears. His fingers spasmed around the black curve of it. His breath caught. For an instant, the room was gone. Cold swept through him, deeper than any wind off the wall. Shadows rose and clung, and he saw, not with his eyes, a pale ridge stretching from end to end of the world, ice and stone and sorcery all bound together, a white serpent asleep upon the earth. Something vast and slow looked back at him. Jon's heart lurched. Then the vision was gone as quickly as it had come. The Solar rushed back. The oaken table, the map of the wall, the candle guttering in its iron sconce, Sam's worried, blinking face. Jon? Jon. Sam was closer now, his hand hovering near the horn, as if he meant to snatch it away and was afraid to touch it. You went strange for a moment. Your eyes. Jon set the horn down carefully on the table between them. His hands were shaking, he realized. He closed one into a fist to still it. I'm fine, he lied. He wasn't quite. There was a tremor deep inside him that had nothing to do with the cold. I think this is no common horn. Sam looked as though he wished the horn were somewhere else. Deep underground, perhaps under a mountain of stone. Or under the sea. Maybe we should. Maybe the maesters at the Citadel. We don't have time for the Citadel, Jon said, more sharply than he intended. You've read more books than any man at the wall. If this is the Horn of Winter, if it can do what they say. He thought of the dead that walked, the pale spiders, the things glimpsed in snowstorms and in the flicker of dragonglass fires. We need every weapon, every edge. Sam's eyes dropped to the horn again. His face was pale as the frost rime on the yard stones. Or it might bring the wall down. That's what the stories say too. Jon remembered the pressure, the vast, slow awareness uncoiling under the world. He had felt no malice in it. Only age, only purpose. The wall is a sword, he said slowly. A shield. The old spells bound into it. The wards. Old Nen used to say a sword will wake if it hears its name. Maybe the horn only speaks to it. Sam looked unconvinced. Some swords kill the man who swings them. Some save him, John said. We don't win this war cowering behind stone and ice every time the night wind howls. He thought of the wildling camps spread along the haunted forest, of Mance's dead crown, of the giants that had died roaring at Castle Black's gate. One, lumbering and confused, bleeding under a forest of spears. They'd been enemies because the wall stood between them, and because the realms of men below the wall had forgotten they shared the same foe. We die together or we live together, John thought. There's no third road. Sam, he said quietly, I want you to find everything you can in those books about horns, about Joramun, about the wall, spirits, wards, anything. Meet me tonight in the rookery. Don't speak of this to anyone else. Sam stared at him, then nodded once, jerky. If this is what I think it is, he whispered, then the old stories were wrong, or they never told them rightly. He drew back from the table as if the horn might grow teeth. Be careful with it, John. Please. I will, John said. Sam went, closing the heavy door softly behind him. Alone, John listened to the wind battering at the tower, the empty spaces between the gusts. The horn lay on the weather-worn map of the wall, its black length curving over the drawn line of castles and abandoned towers. The crack in it caught the candlelight and glimmered faintly, like thin ice over deep water. John reached out and laid his hand on it again. Fingers splayed. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world dropped away. He was standing on the ice. No, not standing. He had no feet, no body, only a sense of himself like a coal buried in snow. The wind shrieked past him in 1,000 voices, tearing at him, and he felt it not on skin but in the shape of the wall itself. Vertical miles of ice and packed snow and blue-lit tunnels, stones stolen from old fortresses and the bones of mountains, all mortared together with spells so old they no longer had words. This is me, something said without saying. This is us. He knew, in the way you know a dream is yours, that he was inside the wall, or speaking with it, or remembering being it. He felt the deep roots the ice drove into the earth, down to where bedrock groaned and slow fires moved, felt the topmost towers where crows crouched black against the stars, felt the dead things beating their pale fists upon the wards that denied them. John pushed outward with the thought of himself, searching. The cold thickened. Shadows moved within the ice, not shapes, but impressions. Ancient faces, some crowned with bronze and iron, some bare and stern. Wolves, white trees, giants hunched like hills with eyes the color of old snow. Even deeper, something vast and serpentine coiled, listening. You are not Joramun, one of the shadows whispered, voice like creaking ice. No, John thought. My name is Jon Snow. I am the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Words meant nothing here. The wall understood him anyway. You are of them, another murmur said. Of stone and fire, of wolf and storm. You are a crack in the ice. Cracks let things in, a third mutter added. Or let them out. John thought of the horn lying on his table. What are you? He asked. What is the horn of winter? You woke me, came the answer. You called my name. I am the binding and the barrier. I am the old bargain made with cold and death. I am the giant in the earth. You are the hand that has taken my hilt. The pressure swelled until he thought his mind might splinter. In that pressure he saw giants slumbering under snowdrifts, bones like tree trunks, hearts beating once a year. He saw barrows and cairns, the dead kings of winter lying with their swords crossed, their spirits banked like coals. He saw the children of the forest standing in a ring of carved weirwoods, eyes weeping red sap as they wove a net of spells that glittered like hoarfrost. Wake, the horn had cried in some other age, long before there was a Jon Snow. Wake and bind, wake and stand. They are coming again, John thought. The walkers, the others, the cold you were raised against. The wall alone won't be enough. I need more than stone and dead spells. The wall considered him, or the consciousness inside it did. He felt its reluctance like pressure behind the eyes. To wake the sleepers is to change the bargain, it said. To loose what was bound, to turn guardians into weapons. Fire and ice do not share their toys kindly, young wolf. I know, John thought. He thought of Rob, gone south and never returned. Of his father's head on a spike. Of Ygritte dying in his arms under Castle Black's wall. But we're out of choices. Wake them and I'll command them. I swear it on my name. Names, it rumbled, old and tired. The living love their names. The dead remember oaths. The pressure shifted. Something gave, deep inside the ice, like a cracked river in spring. The horn in the solar suddenly weighed 100 times what it had a moment ago. When John came back to himself, he was on his knees. The horn lay where he'd left it, but the crack in its side was glowing faintly now, soft as moonlight, pale as the northern lights that sometimes walked the sky. The room felt smaller. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and snow. Outside, men were shouting. John lurched to his feet, hand seeking Longclaw's familiar weight at his hip. The room swam. His head rang as though he himself had been the one blown like a horn. He staggered to the door and wrenched it open. The courtyard of Castle Black was chaos. Men were pouring out of the common hall and the armory, some half-armored, some clutching spears and crossbows, others bulked in furs with nothing but their wits and their boots. The wind carried cries of earthquake, and the wall, and, from someone near the gate, a more terrified, the dead. The dead. The wall's soundin' like it's comin' down. Dolorous Ed shouted as he ran past, helmet lopsided on his head. If this is how it ends, I'm tellin' you now, I'll be vexed. I just did my wash. John's eyes went to the towering blue-white cliff beyond the yard. The wall was humming. It was a low, continuous vibration, so deep it felt like it came from under his ribs. Frost leapt from the ice face in plumes, drifting down like snow. The great stones of the switchback stair rattled. The crenellations shed powder like spilled flour. For a heartbeat, John's heart seized. Had he broken it? Had he done what Joramun was said to have done and sounded the horn that would end it all? Then he saw the light. It seeped through the ice, threads of ghostly blue that spiderwebbed along hidden cracks and old warding glyphs, connecting in patterns he couldn't name. Lines of power, he thought wildly. The old spells waking up. The horn had called them. Lord Commander. It was Bowen Marsh, face gray, eyes wide with something that might have been awe or horror or both. What is this? What's happening to the wall? John's throat was dry. It's answering. Answering what? Me, John thought but did not say. He turned back toward the solar. The horn lay on the table, quiet and dark once more, its crack dim. It might have been an ordinary piece of old bone again, if not for the faint sense of weight pressing down on John's chest, like someone had hung a chain of ice around his heart. He reached for it, then stopped. Not yet. When he came back down, Sam was waiting in the rookery like John had asked, though his hands were shaking as he tried to steady a stack of leather-bound books on the table. Ravens muttered and shuffled on their perches. Some fluffed, some pecked irritably at the air. A few were silent, eyes fixed on John as if they could see something clinging to him that he could not. I felt that, Sam said in a small voice before John could speak. Every stone in the castle shook. A few ravens fell right off their perches. They don't do that, ever. The wall's awake, John said. Or waking. The horn spoke to it, or through it. I don't know the words. He scrubbed a hand through his hair. What have you found? Sam swallowed. Not as much as I'd like. There are mentions of a horn of Joramun, a horn of black ice, big as a man, sometimes as long as a war horn, sometimes with runes scratched deep. It's supposed to do 100 different things, depending on who's writing. Blow down the wall, call dead kings from their barrows, wake giants from the earth, bind the wind. There's an old fragment from a First Men chant that keeps turning up, translated different ways. Listen. He fumbled a parchment out and read, his voice wobbling. "Wake the stone that guards. Wake the bones that watch. Wake the blood that remembers. Horn of night, horn of winter, horn that binds." He glanced up. Other maesters think it's nothing. Symbolic, a metaphor for treaties and oaths. Treaties made with whom? Jon asked. Sam hesitated. With the children, with the giants, with other things. The pact under the god's eye, you remember? They say the first men and the children swore peace by the light of the stars and the faces of the weirwoods. But there are other versions that say the giants were there too, and spirits of the dead, and something older that slept in the mountains and the ice. And there was a horn, always a horn, to seal it. One horn to call all the signers. His hand shook so badly the parchment trembled. "You said the wall was answering? It feels like I've grabbed the hilt of a sword too big for me to swing," Jon said slowly. "But I'm holding it now. If I drop it, I don't know who else might pick it up." Sam licked his lips. "You mean to blow it?" "Not here," Jon said. "And not yet. If the stories are even half true, it won't be a quiet thing. And if the horn wakes giants and spirits, they'll have to come from somewhere." "The haunted forest," Sam whispered. "The Barrows, the Frostfangs, the Skirling Pass." "Hard home," Jon said. The name tasted like iron. "Stannis' ships are still at Eastwatch. The wildlings who survived the battle at the wall are huddled along the tree line, but there are thousands more beyond. If the horn can wake giants and spirits and bind them to a collar, then the man who blows it might command them. Lead them." Sam stared at him. "You mean to lead the dead?" "I mean to lead anything with strength enough to stand against the others," Jon said. "Living or dead, giant or ghost or crow. We tried holding the wall with men alone and we nearly failed. This time we go to meet the storm. And if the horn brings the wall down?" Sam whispered. "If you put that to your lips and instead of waking guardians you loose something we can't control?" Jon thought of the pale shadow he had felt, coiled deep within the ice. It had not felt friendly. Neither had it felt cruel. It had felt bound, waiting. "If we don't change something," he said, "we lose anyway. The dead grow more numerous with every battle we fight and fail. The wall was meant to hold them back until we were wise enough to do better than our ancestors did. I don't know that we're wise, Sam, but we're here. That has to count for something." Sam looked as if he might be sick. "When?" he asked faintly. "As soon as I can," Jon said. The next days were a blur of orders and arguments. Bowen Marsh wanted to post more men on the wall, Drogon's teeth of ice, to watch for cracks that weren't there. Othel Yarwyck sent men to inspect the foundations of the towers, swearing under his breath about old work and new mischief. Dolorous Ed complained that if the world was ending, he would at least like to have his boots mended first. "They're all looking at you, you know?" Ed told Jon as they stood on the top of the wall, watching the ghostly blue veins throb faintly inside the ice. "Every time it hums, they glance your way like they think you might start glowing next." "Do I?" Jon asked. "Nah," Ed said. "You just look tired. That's a mercy." The wall's humming had settled into something like a heartbeat. Slow, strong, regular. At night it pulsed brighter, a soft blue radiance deep within the ice, as if some buried giant were stirring in its sleep. Ravens flew odd patterns, crying in tongues Jon did not know. Once, alone on the parapet, he thought he heard a voice whispering his name in the wind. Not in any human language, but in the groan of ice shifting, in the hiss of drifting snow. "You woke us," it said, like a memory. Finish the call. He had no time for doubt. The wildling camps beyond the tree line were restless and thinning. Scouts brought word of small bands slipping away westward toward the Frostfangs, north toward the Milkwater, east toward the clifftops above the shivering sea. Fear and hunger gnawed at them. They had seen the fire rain down on Mance Rayder's army. They had seen giants die, mammoths fall screaming under scorpion bolts and dragon fire. They had seen the dead, some of them. They wanted to be gone before snow closed the passes and something worse than crows came walking. "We need them," Jon thought, watching thin lines of smoke thread up from the trees. All of them, or at least all of them we can save. He sent a raven to Eastwatch, summoning the captains of Tanis's ships, another to Tormund Giantsbane, wherever the big wildling chief was camped with the remnants of his people. Summons laced with promises and curses both. Stannis himself was off riding in the south, seeking the Karstark's loyalty and the Mountain Clan's swords. Jon dared not wait for him. The king's red woman watched Jon from the king's tower when she thought he wasn't looking, her eyes burning as hot as any coal in any brazier. Once, when he met her gaze, he felt something prick at the horn's awareness inside him, like a finger testing a knife's edge. Not yours, he thought, so fiercely the words shook him. This is older than you, older than your fire god. Leave it. She smiled as if she'd heard. 2 nights later, Jon stood on the deck of a swaying ship as a freezing wind cut through his black cloak. Eastwatch's lights dwindled behind them, scattered candles at the edge of the world. Ahead, Hardhome waited in the dark, a smudge against the gray bulk of land and cliff, the sea pounding at its bones. There had been a time when Hardhome had been a thriving wildling settlement, a place of trade and stolen riches. That time was long gone. Fires had eaten it long ago, rumor said, or shadows had, or the sea itself. The stories disagreed. But the bay remained, a ragged bite out of the land. Ships could anchor there when the weather allowed, and men could land and die. Never thought I'd see the day we sailed north o' Eastwatch for anything but fishin', the captain muttered, watching the gray waves. You sure about this, Lord Commander? No, Jon said honestly, but we're doing it anyway. He had the horn wrapped in oiled leather and canvas, bound tight and lashed to his side, under cloak and surcoat. It burned against his ribs, not with heat, but with intent. Twice since they'd left the wall he had felt the world narrow, the deck and the sky and the sea falling away as if he were standing again within the ice. Each time he pushed it back, breathing slow and steady, blood beating in his ears. When the ship scraped bottom and the men splashed ashore in cold ankle-deep surf, Jon felt the land differently than he had before. The frozen sand under his boots was not just sand. It was packed with old bones and older grudges. The cliffs that loomed above them were not just cliffs. They were scars, where something old had once torn at the world. The wildlings were there. They watched the black-cloaked men come ashore from the shelter of broken timbers and collapsed huts, spears and axes in their hands, children clinging to their legs. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Men with hair like iron and beards like wire, women with knives on their belts and babies on their backs, old ones with eyes like burnt wood. They looked thin and weary and exhausted. Tormund Giantsbane lumbered to the fore, big as a bear, his great red beard a tanglesome banner in the wind. He leaned on his axe, eyeing Jon with a mixture of suspicion and familiarity. So the crow comes north again, he said. Couldn't keep away, boy? I told you I'd come, Jon said. His breath smoked in the air between them. We need each other, Tormund. You know that. What I know, Tormund said, is that last time I marched with a boy with a wolf at his heels, I ended up watching my people burn. He jerked his chin at the wall's distant smudge on the horizon. And what I know is that your big wall o' ice has been singing like a drunk all week, and the dead things in the forest don't come as close as they used to. So either you're making some kind of magic or we're all fucked in a new and different way. You felt it, Jon said. Aye. Tormund grinned without humor. Hard not to, when the ground hums like a woman at her work and the old stones wake up whispering. The free folk aren't much for kneelin' to kings, but we're not blind. We know something shifted, and you came north right after. So I'm guessing you've got something to do with it, Snow. It's not my magic, Jon said. It's older than any of us. He glanced past Tormund, up toward the shadowed cliffs. Where are your giants? Tormund snorted. Wherever they bloody want to be. Some went back to their valles after the battle. Some died. The ones who stayed are up in the hills, sulkin' and smacking each other with trees. They don't think much o' castles and ships. I need them, Jon said. You always did think big, Tormund said. But there was curiosity in his eyes now under the mockery. Giant's bane he might be, but he had led men and women and children through nightmare. He understood the weight of desperate gambles. "What are you plannin', Crow?" John unwrapped the horn. He did it slowly, fingers careful on the knots, and there was a part of him that hoped that when the last layer of oiled cloth fell away, the thing inside would be nothing but old bone and cracked muck, no more dangerous than any hunting horn. But when the black curve met the gray light of the hard-home sky, the air itself seemed to catch. The wind dropped, the distant crash of waves dulled, as if they were suddenly very far away. Hundreds of wildlings shifted, muttered, went still. A child began to cry thinly and was hushed. Ravens somewhere overhead burst into a single startled caw and took flight in a ragged flurry. The horn lay in John's hands, black and old and faintly luminous, the crack in its side glowing with a pale inner blue. It hummed under his fingers, eager. Tormund's ruddy face had gone strangely pale beneath his beard. "Where in the seven hells did you find that?" "Sam found it," John said. "At the fist of the first men, buried with dragonglass. We thought it worthless." He lifted it, feeling the weight of eyes on him. Thousands of eyes, wildling and crow and something else that moved in the corner of his mind like restless ice. "It's not. Put that away, boy," an old wildling woman croaked, hair tangled with bones and bits of shell. Her eyes were white with cataracts, yet he seemed to see truer than most. "That's no toy for crow hands. That's the horn of winter, the horn o' Joramun. It breaks walls and wakes dead things. It don't heed oaths or crowns. It heeds the one who calls loudest," John said. "So I'll call." "Call what?" Tormund demanded. "Call down the wall? You mean to bury us all under ice? Is that your southern plan?" John took a breath that felt like drawing in knives. "I mean to call the giants," he said, "and the spirits of the north. The dead that still remember their oaths. The ancient guardians that slept when we forgot them." He turned slowly, so his voice carried to more than just Tormund, to the ring of wildlings and black brothers alike. "The others are coming. The dead walk. You've seen them. We can either scatter like leaves before a storm, or we can stand together and meet it. I won't force any of you to follow me, but I won't stand idle behind the wall while children freeze and rise with blue eyes. If there's a chance, any chance, to turn the old songs into weapons instead of lullabies, I'll take it. For my father, for my brothers, for all of us." He raised the horn. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Even the sea seemed to hold its breath. Then Jon Snow put the horn of winter to his lips and blew. The sound that came out was not a sound men were meant to hear. It began too low for human ears, a pressure in the gut, a tightening in the jaw, a buzzing in the teeth. Men clapped hands to their heads, fell to their knees, screamed without knowing they were screaming. The gray sky rippled. The cliffs shook themselves like wet hounds, shedding snow and shards of stone. The sea off Hardhome roiled, waves leaping higher than they had any right to, spraying foam like shattered glass. The note climbed, impossibly, into registers that made the air tremble. Ravens tumbled out of the sky like black rain, only to right themselves at the last instant and will upward, shrieking. Dogs howled. Children cried. Somewhere, far away, a wolf threw back its head and answered, and John felt ghosts answering howl like an iron cord between them. He was no longer on the shore. He was in 100 places at once. No, 100 places were in him. He felt mountains shudder and barrows stir. He felt deep caverns where ice hung like teeth, where something old and half-forgotten lifted its head. He felt the cold river that ran deep beneath the wall, touching its frozen heart, and the forest that sprawled northward like a dark sea roofed with snow. "Wake!" the horn cried, its voice now his voice and not his, hammered like a smith's work along the bones of the world. "Wake and remember, wake and stand." In a high valley littered with boulders big as houses, a giant opened its eyes. They were the color of meltwater, milky with sleep. The great shaggy bulk heaved itself upright, snow sliding from its matted hair in sheets. Around it, other sleepers stirred, massive hands flexing, breathing like bellows. For an age they had slept, hearts beating perhaps once a year, slow as glaciers. They had dreamed of warmer days and wide plains and the taste of mammoth. Now a note threaded through their dreams, sharp and urgent. "Wake," said the horn. "Wake and stand." The nearest giant roared, a sound like avalanches. The others answered. Farther west, on a ridge above the milkwater, a brood of giants who had not slept but merely sulked jerked as if stung. Their leader, black-haired and tusked, raised his head. He felt something in his bones he had not felt since his father's time, since before the wall had grown to full height. A call, an order, not from a giant throat, not from a child of the forest, not from ice. From something that was all of those and none. He tasted wolf in it, and fire, and the cold straight honor of stone. "Joramun," he rumbled, but the name did not sit quite right. This was not the horn blast of old, not the voice that had once shaken the giants into war against the Night's King. This was new, and yet old. The same song played on a different breath. He looked north where the sky seemed darker. "Wake," he told his kin. "We march." In barrows scattered across the bar Rolands north of the wall, dead kings of winter lay on their stone slabs, swords rusted in their bony hands. For centuries whispers had come and gone above them. Robber men, hill clans, cold winds, the faint scratching of rats, but nothing had reached them. Their spirits had sunk deep, bound by oaths spoken in a language no living tongue now knew, banked like coals under ash. The horn blast found them. It slithered down through packed earth and stone, through roots and seepage, through the thin veil between worlds. It did not speak in words. It spoke in purpose. "Remember," it said. "Remember the pact. Remember the wall. Remember the cold." Bones shifted. Some barrows stayed silent. Not all memories were strong enough. Not all oaths held. But in others, something that had been waiting a long time opened ghostly eyes. Shapes like mist congealed, rising from ancient bones like breath in winter. Some reached for their rusted swords and found them, gripped them with hands that had no flesh. They did not feel the cold. They were the cold. North of Hardhome, on cliffs that looked out over a sea that never entirely thawed, the others paused. They had been moving south in careful, chill silence, a line of pale riders astride dead horses, their armor shining like moonlight on new snow. Behind them walked ranks of dead men, their skins stretched tight over ice-brittle bones, blue eyes burning. They sensed the walls of the world first, wards and old spells, a net of heat and memory laid over land and sky. They had been testing it for years, probing with tendrils of cold, looking for weakness. Now something pushed back. The horn's call knifed through the cold like a spear of sun. It was not heat. It did not burn them, but it made the air around them vibrate in ways they did not like. It wakened things they had convinced themselves had become myths. Giants, spirits, the wall itself. The lead other drew its mount to a halt. Frost steamed around its blade like a living thing. Its eyes narrowed, crystalline. In the air between worlds, something vast and coiled stirred. The great other, if some might have named it. The cold behind cold. It shifted its attention infinitesimally. For a long moment that attention rested on the wall, on the great sleeping ward now humming with power in answer to the horn, on the stir of ancient allies rousing to a call they had not heard since the world was young. Then slowly it smiled. Change, it thought. Good. On the shore at Hardhome, John staggered as the last of the horn's blast tore out of him. The note died. The silence that followed felt thicker than any sound. He had fallen to one knee without realizing it. His lips were numb. His lungs burned as if he'd been running for miles. His hands shook around the horn's black curve, but he did not drop it. He could not. It clung to him as much as he clung to it. Around him, the wildlings were getting up, cursing, spitting, laughing in the brittle way men laugh after surviving something they don't understand. Some stared at John with awe, some with raw fear. A few made signs with their hands, warding gestures against evil. Crows staggered to their feet too, black cloaks askew, faces drawn. Tormund loomed in front of him. There was a bleeding cut across his cheek where a falling stone had clipped him, but his grin was large and wolfish. "Well," he said, "if that's you playin' a horn, boy, I'd hate to hear your arse after a pot of beans." Jon managed a breathless laugh. "You felt them?" "Oh, Tormund said. He turned, squinting towards the distant line of hills. "Giants woke. Giants who've not stirred in my lifetime, nor my grandfather's. I felt them sit up and crack their backs. And something else. Cold things. Old things. Restlin' in their graves." He clapped Jon on the shoulder, hard enough to rock him. "You've kicked the world in the balls, Snow. No going back now." Jon stood slowly. The horn was lighter in his hands again. The glow in its crack had dimmed to a faint ember. "We don't go back," he said. "We go north." "North o' this?" someone yelped. It might have been Ed. "Marvelous. I was hoping I'd die even colder than I am now." Not all the wildlings came. Many chose to remain at Hardhome, to await Stannis' ships and the uncertain mercy of southern kings. Women with small children, old men whose knees would not carry them far, those with no taste for marching into tales. Jon did not blame them. If anything, he envied them the smallness of their horizons. Hundreds did come. They gathered in a ragged column at the foot of the cliffs. Spearmen and axemen, leather-clad archers, warriors who wore the skulls of animals on their heads. A few thin, wary thens, bronze discs glinting on their chests. At the edges of the gathering, pale shadows flickered in Jon's gaze, half there and half not. When he looked directly at them, they were only snow and rock and the twist of branches. When he looked away, they were men in fur cloaks, women with long knives, children with braids. Their eyes glowed faintly, like cold stars. "The dead are marching with us," Jon thought, and the thought should have terrified him more than it did. Instead, he felt steadier, as if in taking up the horn and blowing it, he had stepped fully onto a path he had been edging around his whole life. He rode at the front, Ghost padding pale and silent beside his horse. The direwolf's hackles were raised, not with fear, but with alertness. Through their bond Jon felt 1,000 scents washed together. Men, old blood, snow, stone, distant cold. The horn lay under his cloak, resting across his thighs, its presence constant as his own heartbeat. Tormund rode to his right, axe across his back. "So," the big wildling said as they picked their way up the first steep slope, "you blew your magic horn and woke giants and ghosts. What next, Lord Commander Snow? You plannin' to whistle up a dragon while you're at it?" "Not today," Jon said. "Today we're looking for giants first. They found them on the third day." The march north from Hardhome was no easy thing. The land there was cruel even by the standards of the haunted forest. Cliffs thrust up like broken teeth. Ravines yawned under treacherous snow. The wind came howling down off the mountains like a living thing. 2 men slipped and fell into a crevasse, their cries swallowed by blue-shadowed depths. A woman lost 3 fingers to frostbite before the second dawn. Children cried until their voices went hoarse, then stumbled in silence, teeth chattering. But they kept going. Jon pushed them onward with words and will both. When his own strength faltered, the horn hummed against his side, and the hum became a pulse in his blood. Forward, forward, forward. The wall's awareness rode with him. He felt it like a weight at his back, the sense of a colossal gate creaking open somewhere far behind. On the third day, the wind changed. It came down off a high ridge smelling of musk and old fur, of bone and ancient earth. Ghost stopped dead, tail stiff, lips wrinkling in a silent snarl. The horses shied and tossed their heads. Children clutched at their mother's skirts. Somewhere, a man muttered a prayer. Jon squinted up against the glare off the snow. At first he thought he was looking at hills that moved. Then one of the hills stood up. The giant was easily twice the size of one Weg Wundar I, who had seemed enormous enough at Castle Black. This one's shoulders were as broad as a cottage. Its arms hung to its knees, cords of muscle rolling beneath scarred hide. Its hair was a wild mane of gray and white, tangled with bones and bits of wood. Its skin was the color of old stone, its eyes pale and deep. Behind it, more shapes moved. 6, 7, 10? It was hard to count. The land itself seemed to join and part around them. Gulfs of snow and shadow hiding and revealing legs like tree trunks, hands like spades. They watched the little knot of men and women on the slope below with the stillness of mountains. Tormund's breath whistled out between his teeth. "Well," he said, "you got their attention." The lead giant rumbled something, voice low as grinding boulders. Tormund replied in the rumbling, guttural tongue of the giants, arms spread wide to show no weapon in his hands. Jon understood none of the words, but the tone carried. Wary, respectful, threaded with the kind of bold insolence only someone who had eaten and drunk and fucked among giants could get away with. The giant listened, turned its head slowly and looked at Jon. The world narrowed. The giant's gaze was not like a man's. It was like standing in front of an avalanche and having it pause, considering whether to fall on you. In that pale blue stare, Jon saw the age of ice and stone. He saw mammoths thundering across frozen plains, saw first men building cairns, saw children of the forest singing to weirwoods in a time before language had names. The horn at his side throbbed. He nudged his horse forward until he stood clear of the wildling ranks. Ghost moved with him, white and silent against the snow. The giant rumbled a question that was not words, not entirely. It was more a feeling pressed against his skin. "Who are you, little crack in the ice?" Jon loosened the horn from where it lay beneath his cloak, letting the giants see it. The crack in its side, that faint inner glow, pulsed once. "I am Jon Snow," he said, knowing names mattered, even if they had to be translated clumsily through Tormund's booming voice. "I am the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I am the son of Eddard Stark of Winterfell, and the North runs in my blood. I blew the horn that woke you." Tormund translated, words rolling like thunder. The giant's eyes flicked to him, then back to Jon. "Old promises," the sense came. "Old oaths. You are not Joramun. Your blood is thin." Jon thought of his mother, whose face he had never known. Of Lyanna Stark's statue in the crypts under Winterfell, wolf features carved in stone. He thought of dreams he had had as a child, of strange halls filled with shifting shadows and a woman's voice singing a song in a language no one had taught him. He thought of the wall's whisper, wolf and storm, stone and fire. No, he thought back at that vast gaze. "I'm not Joramun. I'm me, and I'm all you have." He swung down from his horse. The cold bit into him like the teeth of 100 tiny wolves. He walked forward anyway, Ghost at his heel. The snow came up nearly to his knees. His boots crunched. His breath sounded too loud in his own ears. Behind him he could feel the tension of 100 knocked bowstrings, though he had not ordered anyone to knock or draw. Men do these things when they are afraid, and the giants were terrifying. He stopped 20 paces before the lead giant. The creature's shadow fell over him, vast and blue. Up close, Jon could see the scars crisscrossing its huge chest, the old, puckered wounds where spears had gone in and never come out. It smelled of musk and armored leather and something like frost-burnt pine. Slowly, Jon unwrapped the horn enough that the giant could see it clearly. The giant froze. Its eyes, pale as river ice, widened. It made a sound that was half a growl, half a word in that deep tongue. His huge hand lifted, fingers spread. Behind its eyes, something old moved. Joramun's call, Jon sensed. The horn's memory, waking the giant's own. It was remembering standing before another little man on another day, long ago, when the wall had been newly raised and the pact newly sworn. That man had worn no black. He had worn furs and bone, his hair long and his face painted with red spirals. But he had held the same horn, and his eyes had burned with the same stubborn fire. "Wake," that man had said. "Stand with us, or we all fall." Giants had marched then. They had died, and died, and died again, fling themselves against cold and shadow. Some had slept, refusing to pick a side in the quarrel of fire and ice again. Some had sulked in their high valleys. Some had simply lain down and turned into hills. Now another caller had come. The giant lowered its hand until its thick, cracked nails were only a few feet from John's chest. Could have crushed him easily, as a man crushed a beetle. Instead, the giant held its palm open, fingers curled like the roots of a tree, waiting. John understood. He stepped forward and set the horn in that enormous hand. The weight of it shifted. For a moment he felt something tug at him, as if a cord in his own guts were being pulled away. His vision blurred. The world tilted. He nearly fell. Ghost pressed against his leg, steadying him. Through their bond, John felt the wolf's alarm, his readiness to leap and tear at the giant's huge hand. John closed his own fingers in Ghost's fur, breathing through the lurch. Not yet, he thought at the horn. I'm not done. The giant cradled the horn delicately, as if it were an egg. The pale crack shone faintly against its rough skin. The giant bowed its head, very slowly, until its brow nearly touched the horn's black curve. Words rumbled out of it, thick and old. Tormund translated. Voice hushed despite its boom. It says, Tormund relayed, that the horn knows you. It says it tasted your breath and your blood when you blew. It says you are bound to it and it to you. Says you woke the wall and the Barrow Kings and the sleeping giants, and now you're stuck with us. His grin flashed, sudden and savage. Says you're a fool. Says that makes you one of them. John let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. So will they come? He asked. Tormund shrugged. They'll march, no love for dead cold things, giants. The old tales say the others hunted their young for sport. Hen the world was young. They still remember that. They'll stand with us. For a while. Good, John said. His legs felt weak. We'll need them. We're not done. No, the horn seemed to whisper, a cold trace in his blood. Not yet. Not nearly. That night they camped in the lee of a ridge, the giants looming like mobile hills around them. Fires crackled in hollows scooped out from the wind. Children gaped openly at the giants, wide-eyed, their fear warring with awe. Once, long after the mutter of conversation had faded and only the occasional crack of settling would broke the silence, John woke to find a shape of thin fog sitting across from him, its eyes faint points of blue-white. He did not reach for Longclaw. Who were you? He asked softly. The mist shifted. The air around it smelled faintly of cold iron and old leather. A crown flickered on its head, here and gone. When it spoke, its voice was like wind through a crypt. I was Brandon, it said. Or Torin. Or Ricard. Names are snowflakes. I was king of winter when that meant something different. I swore my sword to the wall and the words carved in ice. I lay down and slept so my strength would not be wasted on Southron quarrels. You woke me. John swallowed. Will you fight? The ghost's pale eyes fixed on him. We were raised to stand against the night, it said. We were not raised to stand behind stone while our kin freeze. We will stand. But your path is not ours. What do you mean? You are still warm, the spirit said. You have choices. The mist rose. For a moment it seemed to bow swordless. Then it drifted away among the sleeping men and giants and wolves, fading into the dark like breath on a winter morning. John lay awake for a long time, listening to the wind, feeling the horn's slow pulse in his blood. The days that followed were a blur of marching and strange diplomacy. John found himself mediating arguments between giant and wildling, between living and dead. A giant wanted to eat a horse that belonged to a then. A Barrow ghost objected to a fire being built atop what felt like his grave. A little boy sobbed because a spirit had walked through him in the night and he had felt the cold in his bones. John soothed where he could, commanded when he must, listened always. He was changing. He felt it. The wall was in him now, or he was in it. When he closed his eyes, he could feel how far they were from its bulk, sensed the reach of its power like a faint tide at the edge of his mind. There, behind them, humming. When the wind shifted, he could taste things he had never noticed before. The tang of old magic in certain stones, the thin prickle of wards left by children long gone, the greasy stain of places where the others had passed, leaching warmth from the land. Ghost changed too. His eyes glowed a little brighter than before, his sense sharper in Jon's mind. Sometimes Jon saw brief images through the direwolf's gaze even when he was awake. A stag stepping daintily through drifts, a pale, thin shape watching from between trees, vanishing when ghost turned, the blue shine of distant ice. They met the first others at the edge of the true north. It was a clear day, brittle and cruel, sunlight cutting off the snow so sharply it hurt to look. The sky was a hard, flat blue, the air so cold it seemed to ring. The ragged column wound its way along a narrow pass between two hulking ridges, giants striding easily where men had to pick their way careful as cats. Jon's neck prickled. He reined in, lifting a hand. The column creaked to a halt behind him. Mutters rippled. Horses snorted. A giant rumbled a question. Ghost's ears were flat against his skull. "What is it?" Tormund demanded, squinting around. "I don't see." The world's colors dulled. One moment the snow was blinding white, the sky sharp blue. The next everything seemed bleached, as if someone had dragged a curtain of thin glass between the world and the sun. The temperature dropped, though Jon would not have believed that possible. His breath froze in his beard in an instant. Men began to curse. Then their words died on their lips as they saw. They came out of the air. No door opened. No portal flared. One moment the pass was empty save for the wind and the waiting snow. The next there were riders. 4 of them at first on horses that should have been dead. Skin hung in gray tatters from the beasts' frames. Ice crusted their flanks and mane. Their riders were tall and thin, familiar only from nightmare. Armor that seemed carved of frozen mist clung to them. Swords of crystal hung lightly in their hands. Their eyes burned blue, brighter than any sky. Behind them, more forms took shape. Ranks upon ranks of dead men. Their movements jerky but purposeful, blue eyes fixed. Their armor was a patchwork of the ages. Black cloaks from fallen brothers, fur and bone from wildlings, bits of maester's chain, a knight's dented helm. Some of them Jon knew. Some of them he had killed. Some had died long before he was born. The horn at his side was suddenly heavy as a mountain. He could not breathe. The lead other tilted its head, looking Jon over like a man might appraise a horse. There was curiosity in that gaze, and something like amusement. It lifted its sword. Frost steamed from the blade. Where the tip passed, the air crystallized, ice crystals forming and falling like glass dust. The sound was a faint, faint chime. Behind Jon, men were breaking. Some fell to their knees. Some scrabbled for weapons that shook in their hands. Some wept, quietly and openly. Giants shifted, snorting. Their breath plumed thick. The dead king's spirits gathered like fog at Jon's shoulders, their presence a thin bolster against the crushing weight of the other's cold. The wall's awareness surged in him like a tide. Now it whispered, not in words but in a fierce, icy urgency. Now or never, little crack. Bind or break. Jon slid from his saddle. The cold hit him like a blow. His jaw. Eintes wanted to lock. His lungs did not want to draw in air. He made them anyway. His hand found the horn under his cloak without needing to look. Ghost flowed in front of him, hackles up, lips peeled back to show white teeth. The direwolf's breath steamed. His growl sounded small in the wide, thin air. Jon walked forward. He could feel eyes on him from behind, hundreds of them. Living, dead, giant ghost. Every step felt like it took half his life, the cold leaching strength from his muscles. He stopped 10 paces from the lead other. Close, it was beautiful in a way. Not the beauty of a woman or a fine sword, but the beauty of a clear winter night, of frost patterns on glass. Its features were sharp and inhuman, sculpted neither male nor female but utterly itself. When it smiled, its teeth were small and even, like shards of bone. It spoke. The sound was not like human speech. It was a thin, crystalline chime, like ice cracking on a lake in deepest winter. Jon did not know the words. He felt their meaning anyway, cold and cutting. Little piece of warmth, it said. Little crack. You meddle with things older than you. John's hand tightened on the horn. "You're meddling too," he said. His voice shook only a little. "You always have. You push south against what was agreed." "I'm only pushing back." The other's smile widened. "Agreed," it said, tasting the word as if it were something new. "You remember, then? That is interesting." "I remember enough," John said. "The Horn of Winter was part of the pact. Giants, spirits, kings of winter, children, and you. The wall was built to keep you in your realm and us in ours. You crossed. Now the wall wakes, and so do its defenders." The other's eyes flicked down to the horn. "Ah," it said. "That toy." The temperature plummeted again. John felt frost creeping up his boots, a lace of ice slithering over leather and into the gaps. The horn burned against his hand, not with heat, but with resistance. "The horn bound us once," the other said. "Bound us to the terms of their little bargain. We were curious. We agreed. For a time. But the warm ones always break their own rules first. They forgot. They quarreled. They turned on their own. Why should we honor an oath the living do not even remember?" "Because you gave your word," John said. "Because you want a world to destroy. If you kill everything, if you freeze it all solid, you'll have nothing left to play with. This is a better game. A longer one." The other laughed. The sound was terrible. "You bargain," it said. "Little crack. Little wolf. Very well. Let us bargain. You woke things that slept by blowing that horn. Giants. Ghosts. The wall. Call them now. Bind them. Stand against us with all that you have woken. If you win, we will sleep. For a while. If we win, we keep all our new toys. Including you." The wall in John's blood recoiled. "No," it whispered. "No. It is a trap." Of course it was. The others had been playing this game since before there were names for winter. They did not offer fair chances. They offered illusions and snares and choices that weren't choices at all. But John had already made his choice when he put the horn to his lips at Hardhome. He lifted it again now. The cold fought him. His fingers wanted to freeze to the horn's surface. His lips wanted to crack and bleed. The horn was as heavy as the world. He breathed in. He blew. The sound this time was different. The first had been a raw, waking call, a hammer on the bones of giants, a shout down into barrows. This one was a summons. It carried with it all that John was. His years on the wall, his honor, his stubbornness, his grief, his love, his fear. It carried Winterfell and the crypts and ghosts' red eyes and the feel of Longclaw's hilt. It carried the words of the Watch and the quiet strength of Old Bear Mormont and the memory of Ygritte's hair like fire. Wake, it cried again. Stand. But it added something new now, a thread of self, follow. The wall surged into it like a flood. The sound slammed into the ranks of the dead like a physical thing. Some staggered. A few collapsed, their bones coming apart under armor as if their strings had been cut. Blue eyes flickered. The cold that filled them shuddered, meeting something of equal age and opposite intent. Giants roared. The living giants around John lifted their massive heads and bellowed, voices joining the horn's blast. The ones beyond, those who had slept in high, hidden valleys until John's first call roused them, answered, voices rolling over ridges like thunder. Spirits poured from the snow. They came in a white rush, flickers of pale light, mists shaped vaguely like men and women, wolves and bears and stags. Some wore crowns of ice, some carried swords of nothing but air, some were only eyes and a presence. They swarmed around John like a blizzard made of memory, their touch bitter cold and oddly strengthening at once. The wall itself seemed to loom behind him. The sense of it filled the pass, a colossal weight of ice and stone and oath, anchored deep in the earth. The humming he had felt became a roar, though only he seemed to hear it fully. Its blue veins of power flared in his inner eye, spreading outward along unseen lines, connecting barrows and weirwoods, giant valleys and forgotten shrines. The other's smile faltered. It raised its sword. The battle at the edge of the world began. The dead rushed first. They came forward in a rattling tide, boots crunching on snow, weapons raised. Arrows flew, shattering on breastplates, snapping shafts. A few found eyes or gaps, dropping corpses that did not stay down long. Men screamed as they met old friends and enemies in the ranks of the dead. Wildlings cursed and hacked, fear lending their blows frenzy. The giants moved like storms. They waded into the dead as a man wades through tall grass, sweeping tree trunk arms. Bones snapped. Bodies flew. A giant's foot came down on 3 wights at once, grinding them into pulp. But even giants bled when ice blades slid between ribs, when dead hands clung and clawed. Spirits darted through the melee. Where a ghost passed through a white, frost formed in intricate patterns, strange symbols of a language long dead. Some wights froze solid where they stood, their blue eyes dimming. Others staggered, their movements jerky and confused, as if 2 wills fought inside them. Jon moved like a man in a dream. He did not remember drawing Longclaw, but the Valyrian steel danced in his hand, smoky waves running down its length. Ghost stayed at his side, a pale blur of teeth and fur, tearing at dead legs, leaping at throats. Wherever Jon struck, wights fell and did not rise. The sword left a trail of steaming halves behind it. The other watched, while its dead minions died again. In droves, while giants roared and ghosts screamed silent screams, the lead White Walker sat its dead horse as if carved from ice. Its sword rested lightly in its hand. Its blue eyes tracked Jon with increasing focus. "Little crack," it said in Jon's mind, even as its mouth did not move. "Little wolf, you learned quickly." "So did you," Jon panted, cutting down a wight that lunged for his throat. The horn at his side pulsed in time with his heart. "Once. We were always what we are," the other said. It lifted its sword. The wall inside Jon screamed a warning. He barely got Longclaw up in time. The ice blade met Valyrian steel with a sound like 1,000 bells shattering at once. Sparks flew. No, not sparks. Shards of frost that burned where they landed. The shock of the impact ran up Jon's arms, numbing his fingers. The other's strength was inhuman. It barely seemed to exert itself, yet the blow almost drove Jon to his knees. The horn poured power into him. It was not warmth. It was not comfort. It was more like stepping into a river that wanted to sweep him away and somehow managing to stay on his feet. The wall's weight settled behind his blows. The voices of dead kings shouted in his blood. For a moment he and the White Walker stood locked, steel against ice, wills pressing against each other. "You are more than you should be," the other observed. "Someone meddled with your blood." Jon had no breath for words. He shoved, twisting Longclaw, trying to force the ice sword aside. The other let him. It flowed backward with a grace that seemed almost lazy, dismounting its horse without actually seeming to move. Its feet left no prints in the snow. It circled him, sword low, the pale mist coiling around its blade. "Someone always meddles," it said. "Once it was the children. Now perhaps your Fire Queen in the south. Or someone older. Or younger. Does it matter? You are what you are." A sudden image flashed in Jon's mind, unbidden. A woman on a bed drenched in blood and petals. A man with sad eyes playing a harp. A tower that smelled of dust and blue roses and fear. He staggered. The other lunged. Only Ghost's sudden snarl and slam into his leg knocked him sideways in time. The ice sword sliced through the air where his neck had been a heartbeat before, leaving a trail of glittering frost. Jon hit the ground hard, snow smashing the breath out of him. The horn's weight dragged at his side, pulling him toward the earth. "We can make another bargain," the other said calmly, looming over him, sword angled down. "Give us the horn. Bind yourself to us instead of to that tired old wall. You can be more than a crack. You can be a river of cold. Think of it. No more fear. No more choice. No more pain." Ghost leapt. The dire wolf hit the other full in the chest. For a heartbeat Jon thought it would be like leaping at ice. Solid, indifferent. Instead, Ghost's body seemed to go through the walker, as if it were both there and not. Frost exploded outward. The other's blue eyes flared. It screamed, a sound that made Jon's teeth ache. Ghost rolled aside, yelping, fur rimed with ice, but alive. The other's misty form flickered. For the first time, its composure cracked. It looked uncertain. The horn in John's hand hummed. He did not think. He moved. He lunged up from where he'd fallen, snow exploding around him, and jammed the mouth of the Horn of Winter against the White Walker's chest. The contact was like plunging his hands into a furnace made of ice. Pain seared up his arms, cold so intense it went past burning into something that was almost its own kind of heat. His vision whited out. He smelled ozone and old blood. Somewhere he heard himself scream. The horn drank. For an instant, the boundaries between John, the wall, the horn, and the other vanished. He was standing in a world made entirely of sharp edges and stillness, where nothing ever decayed because nothing ever lived. He felt the walker's mind, a smooth, cold surface, ancient and alien. He felt its memory of slow, perfect winter, of the first time it had stood beneath a sky full of green fire and watched men crawl across the snow like ants. He felt its disdain and its curiosity and its hunger. He also felt something else, a thread, a thin, almost invisible line of force that connected the other to something, to someone. The great cold, the thing behind all these pale riders, the source of their purpose. A thing coiled deep in the far north, in a palace of ice and silence, where even thought froze. The horn latched onto that thread. Old promises, it hummed, in a language older than either of them. Old bargains, bound by ice, bound by stone, bound by breath. The walker recoiled, tried to pull back, to sever the connection. The great cold tugged on the other end, puzzled, then annoyed. John clung to the horn like a man clinging to a cliff in a storm. He poured himself into it. Not his life, but his will, his rage, his refusal. He thought of his father's quiet honor, of Rob's laugh, of Arya's wild grin, of Sansa's songs, of Bran's questions, of Rickon hiding in the crypts, of Winterfell's walls and the Godswood's rustling loo. Avi's, of Sam's bravery, of Gren's last stand in the tunnel, of PYP's jokes. He thought of Ygritte saying, "You know nothing, Jon Snow," of her dying in his arms, of the burning of Mance Rayder, of giants dying at the gate, of all the nameless wildlings who had fallen in the snow. He thought of the words of the Watch. "I am the shield that guards the realms of men." The horn roared. The wall roared with it. The thread snapped. The White Walker shattered. It did not melt. It broke into 1,000 pieces, limbs and torso and head and sword fragmenting all at once into jagged shards of ice that flew outward in a glittering cloud. Where they struck the snow, they hissed and evaporated, leaving tiny puffs of freezing mist. The horn went silent. Jon collapsed. The world came and went in patches. He was vaguely aware of hands on him, dragging him back, of Ghost's hot breath on his face, of Tormund's voice booming curses and laughter in equal measure, of giants roaring triumph, sweeping swathes of dead from the field, of spirits shrieking soundlessly as they swarmed over whites, tearing the cold from their bones. When his vision cleared, the pass was a charnel ground. Dead men lay in heaps, their bodies twisted and broken. Some did not move, others twitched, then stilled as ghosts passed through them. The remaining others had withdrawn, drawing their dead back with them. They stood at the far end of the pass abreast, tall and pale, watching. Their blue eyes burned with a new intensity. One of them lifted its sword in a gesture that was not quite a salute, not quite a threat. The cold withdrew slightly. Not done. The great cold whispered somewhere beyond the world. Its voice a rumble felt under the skin. "Not yet, but you changed the game, little crack. We will change too." Then they were gone. Not in a puff of smoke or a flash of light. One heartbeat they stood there, crystalline and implacable. The next, the space they had occupied was empty. The only sign of their passage, the frost-rimed rocks and the thin, bitter taste of their presence in the air. The dead that had stood with them collapsed like puppets whose strings had been cut. The sudden absence of tension made Jon's knees buckle. Tormund caught him. "You stupid, brave, mad Southron bastard," the big wildling said hoarsely. "You did it. John's lips were numb. Did I? You killed one o' the pale fuckers, Tormund said. Right in front of us. Never seen the like. You broke it like glass. John looked down at his hands. The horn lay in them, black and cracked, silent. The glow in its fracture was gone. The edges of the crack were rimed with a thin coating of frost that did not melt even under his breath. It's quiet, he whispered. Sam would have known what that meant, or at least had guesses. John felt suddenly, keenly alone. The wall's presence in him was still there, but altered. Less a constant pressure, more a deep thrum in the background. The spirits around him felt thinner, somehow, as if some of their strength had been spent and would take time to return. One of the dead kings drifted near. You severed a chain, it said slowly, as if surprised. The cold will not move quite so easily now. It will have to reach, not flow. Is that good? John asked. For now, the ghost said, until it learns to bind differently. The giant who had first taken the horn from him rumbled, bending low. It tapped the horn gently with one massive finger. The crack widened with a faint, brittle sound. Careful, John protested, then stopped. There was no point. Something in him already knew. The horn was dying. It had done what it was meant to do. Wake the wall, wake the giants and spirits, wake old bargains. It had severed the direct tether between the others and their source, forcing the great cold to work harder, stretch thinner. It had given John a way to kill a walker that was not only Valyrian steel. But nothing in the world had infinite strength. Not men, not walls, not even artifacts woven from the wills of children and giants and kings of winter. He looked up at the mass of men and women and giants around him, at the scattered pale shapes of spirits, at Ghost's red eyes. We bloodied them, he said, more to himself than anyone else. We made them change. Tormund said, and they'll bloody us back, never doubt it. You heard Emp. We changed the game. Now we've got to play it till the end. John nodded. He did not know what that end would look like. Perhaps he would die, here or at the wall or in some field of snow yet unseen. Perhaps he would live to see green growing again where only ice had been. Perhaps the wall would stand forever, humming quietly, its consciousness intertwined with his. Perhaps one day some other fool would blow whatever horn came next and wake something even older. But one thing he knew as clearly as he knew his own name. He would not turn away. We go back, he said, voice rough as broken ice. We go back to the wall. We tell them what we've done. We build on it. We find more dragonglass. We look for Valyrian steel. We talk to the children if there are any left. We learn. We train. We stand. He squeezed the horn one last time, feeling its faint, failing hum. We do what we were meant to do. We guard the realms of men. Ghost licked his hand, tongue warm against his frost-numbed skin. Tormund snorted. You and your garden, he said, but there was something like respect in his eyes. Fine then, we guard. Giants guard. Ghosts guard. Till we can't. One of the giants raised its head and roared. The sound rolled across the pass, echoing off ridges and into the sky. It was not a roar of fear or of rage. It was a roar of challenge. The spirits stirred, swirling around John like a flurry of pale snow. The dead kings straightened, their mist forms brightening faintly. The wall's thrum in his bones steadied. The horn of winter lay still in his hands, old and cracked and almost spent. John lifted it anyway. He did not blow it. Not this time. Instead, he raised it high so all could see, living and dead alike. This is not the end, he said, and the pass carried his voice farther than it should have. This is the start. We woke. So did they. Now we see who stands when the storm's done. The wind picked up, somewhere far to the south, beyond the reach of his senses, beyond even the wall's awareness. A dragon stirred in its sleep. Somewhere to the west, a red priestess looked north and frowned. Somewhere underground, roots shifted, and a child of the forest opened eyes blind and green. The game had changed, and at its heart, at the place where ice and fire, life and death, oath and hunger all tangled, stood Jon Snow, the horn-claimed crack in the wall, the man who had blown winter's call and commanded giants and spirits. He did not know what story the singers would make of him one day, if any of them lived to sing. But for now, there was snow under his boots, a sword in his hand, a wolf at his side, and a war to fight. He squared his shoulders, turned his face toward the south, toward the wall and the realms of men, and began to walk.